Welcome to 28 Days and Beyond.
The show where we talk about our history, our heritage, and our culture.
I'm Amari.
I'm Charisma. Welcome back. AJ.
What's up, Riz?
So, question for you.
Please.
How do you identify yourself? What is your identity? What is something that is tied to Amari Johnson?
I'm an African. Never was an African American. Blacker than black, I take it back to my origin. Same skin, hated by the
He's
Klansman.
rapping.
Big nose and hit. Nah.
He's rapping.
Yeah, you know, I think that's an integral part of my identity,
No,
though, as an
seriously.
African. On an African set.
Okay.
See what I'm saying?
Fair enough.
During Black History Month. Yeah.
So I have another question for
Yeah.
you. What happens when you have been tied to a specific identity for your entire life and then that changes?
Yeah, that's
what does that look
interesting.
like?
I can imagine it being very confusing, bewildering, perhaps. Definitely a cause for an identity crisis, without a doubt.
For sure.
Why? What do you have in mind?
Well, today, that's one of the things I wanted to talk about, specifically with athletics in college, specifically athletics at a predominantly white institution with black athletes, and what life looks like after the sports have stopped.
I see.
Whether it's prematurely or otherwise, what
Right.
that looks like,
that looks
what
like.
happens, what happens after injury.
Yeah.
How do you identify yourself?
You know, I've thought about that before because, you know, they say statistically, I mean, what's the percentage of people who actually go on to play professional, whether it be in this
True.
country or otherwise? But for you to get to that level of, you know, athleticism, you don't just walk on the field and say, this is
Absolutely
what I
not.
do. You've had to have spent hours of your day for years on end. Your life is tied to that sport.
Yeah.
And then for all of a sudden for it to just be like, all right, well, I'm no longer, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I do.
That's fascinating.
And it's funny because I played sports all throughout middle school, high school, but
Yeah.
I never thought about actually like pursuing it
Yeah,
for a
without a
career.
doubt.
So it's a whole different
Yeah.
thing when that's your
When that
entire
is your-
life.
Exactly, yep. Yeah,
So-
yeah. I was a track runner in high
Were
school.
you?
I was nice as a freshman.
Okay.
Then they moved me up, so I wasn't only racing against freshmen, and all of a sudden
All
I
of a
realized I
sudden.
won. So yeah, so that was the college athletics was never really, you know.
I wasn't giving up Thanksgiving. That's the real reason I did not pursue athletics in college. I'm just being honest.
Hey, well, thank you. I appreciate your honesty. Today we're actually joined by Darryl McDaniel, who is a student athlete at Villanova University, and he'll be talking about this and quite a bit more when we come back on 28 Days and Beyond.
Welcome back to 28 Days and Beyond. We are now joined by Darryl McDaniel. Thank you for being here with us today.
Greetings.
Greetings. A man of a few words.
Yeah. So Darryl, you played past tense. You
Yeah.
played football at Villanova University.
Yes.
And why'd you stop playing?
Due to concussions, too many of them.
Wow. Yeah, there's a lot of debate and discussion right now about. Do you watch the show Ballers?
I do not.
Oh, okay, well that was one of the topics, but it's a major discussion about, you know, altering the rules of football to limit player injury.
I don't think you should.
Really?
Why not?
Football is a violent sport.
I mean, that's it. It's
You
just
really
it's
know
gonna be
what
what
you
it
sign
is.
up for.
Wow.
I mean, it's just unfortunate, but it happens.
But what is it at what point did they say what you've had too many concussions or?
I could have actually kept playing if I wanted to, but like it was just not smart.
Okay.
I had 4 in a year's time.
Oh,
4 in a year.
so I thought concussions were like, oh, I skipped I skipped my knee. But concussions are like your brain smashing up against your skull.
Yeah, it's serious.
4 of them in a year, bro. That's
Yeah, that's pretty
Yeah, I only played 3
intense.
games this season, but like it's based off of like your concussion protocol at your school. So
okay.
once you're symptom free, then you go through the protocol and then be able to
Okay.
play again.
So let's go back a little bit. When did you actually develop a love for football?
I started playing in 06 when I was 7, and since then it's just been my love, I guess you could say.
Wow.
since you were 7.
7.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So now, as we were talking about in the intro, so your whole life, you've dedicated to this sport.
Yeah.
What now?
Now it's hard. Definitely during the season, it was looked at as a injury. You know, I knew I wasn't gonna play anymore, but like I was still in season.
I
so
got
like,
you. Yeah.
You're injured, so it's always next year. But like I still don't think that it's hit me yet that I'm not playing anymore. Right now I'm still working out with the team and you know, going through all the motions of like being out of season. So I feel like it's really gonna hit me like when spring ball comes around.
Okay. So are you done completely or just for the year?
Yeah, medically disqualified is what they call
Wow.
Wow. So we were talking a little bit about identity, and like Amari said, you know, you've played since you were 7 years old now. How has the process been for you, just in terms of redefining like who you are as Darryl outside of football?
Well, since I've always played football, I've always been like on a team, so I've always been a team player. So I still think that helping others is definitely part of who I am as a person, just because of how my mom raised me. She was a very caring person, so I still think I'm a, you know, team player at heart.
Wow.
I mean, I'm trying to get a sense of, like, am I putting too much on it?
What?
I'm like, yo, your whole identity. And you just like, I mean, you know, hey, kind of.
I say it like it's nothing, just because of lots of prayer behind doors and tears I've cried, you know, behind doors. But like, yeah, it hurts, but it wasn't in my plan, you know. So I can't harp on, you know, something that's not here anymore. Just use the learning experience, use it as a learning experience, and be greater.
Yeah.
You know?
We also talked a little bit in the first segment about identity with Black athletes in particular at a predominantly white institution. What's been your experience in terms of that?
Outside of football, I mean, it's definitely, it's fine for me, just because of, I like to stay low key, in a sense, just stay out the way.
We can't tell that you like to stay low key at all.
But I mean, I've definitely got some dirty looks, or been racially profiled driving outside of campus, KOP area, stuff like that. But like, it's become so normal, in a sense, which is a bad thing.
Yeah.
But you know, yeah.
Well, we definitely want to keep the conversation going,
Certainly.
talk more about identity, talk more about life outside of something you've been tied to for such a long time, and then what moving forward really looks like for you. But we have to take a little bit of a break, so we'll be back with more 28 Days and Beyond right after this.
We're back on 28 Days and Beyond, joined by Darryl McDaniel.
Indeed.
Indeed. So, all right, so we talked about this, right? What is going forward look like for you?
Well, this summer, I plan on doing an internship at a police department, actually.
All right.
Wow.
Gonna join the law enforcement, I guess.
So you could racially profile other athletes at the...
I think he's going to do
No.
that. No.
But I mean, you don't see a lot of black cops, you know what I mean? And if you do see them, it's like, oh, you're a pig, you know what I mean? So my cousin is actually a police officer up in Syracuse, and he gives back to the community. He'll play basketball with the kids, and if they beat him, he buys them shoes. You know, something small like that. It's just a way to change the narrative of a black cop.
So was it your cousin that kind of inspired you to maybe want to pursue law enforcement after?
It's definitely something that played a part, but my great uncle was actually a master deputy sheriff, I think that's what you call it, in Arlington. So he kind of like pushed for it and like had some ends. So like, why not if it's set up for you? You know what I mean?
All right, so you've been going back to the DMV.
For sure.
That's what's up. Now, one of the things that we were talking about earlier, though, about in terms of, you know, you said being racially profiled as part of being an athlete. What are some other aspects of it? I mean, it sounds like you had a pretty positive experience as an athlete overall in terms of your time here. We know that not all schools treat their athletes, or particularly their football players, like Villanova does. What are some of the things that you would say were, you know,
different?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can I tie it into like the injuries and stuff like that?
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's cool.
absolutely.
Definitely,
That's very
like,
important.
With injuries, I know at a lot of big schools, they would definitely, after a big injury, well, what's your plan now? But they actually treat us pretty decent here. So they're honoring my scholarship and, you know, allowing me to stay on the team and just gonna let me still be a part of the team and get my degree, which is amazing, honestly.
So you were saying that, I mean, sometimes they'll just cut them loose.
Yeah.
You're on your own at that point.
Yeah.
Wow. I mean,
So you feel supported here then?
Yeah, for sure.
and that's important with the comments you made earlier about, football just naturally being a violent sport, right? So that we know that these schools make a lot of money over their football programs, and not a lot of them take care of their athletes, right? And as we were saying, because many of them won't go on to
Be
professional football players, life afterwards. So a deteriorating health injury in college, they get cut, they get no degree, and it's like, where do they go from there?
And also one of the other things that I think we talked about off camera was just the fact that for a lot of athletes, and black athletes in particular, education isn't always prioritized as it pertains to sports. It's like, okay, well, he's doing great on the field, so
you're just gonna push him
yeah,
through
like
basket weaving.
push,
It's time to go for basket weaving.
Yeah.
But I don't think that's the case here. I definitely had to work for what I have. You know what I mean? There wasn't no easy shortcut where somebody else is doing my work, stuff like that.
Yeah.
You really have to work here.
That's what's up, man.
But you have the support system to do so. So you're not alone.
What advice would you offer to other athletes or people that have been athletes for a particularly long time and they're pursuing it on a collegiate level?
Definitely use the game. Don't let it use you. Don't become
That was deep. That was deep.
It
That was
was.
deep.
don't become a statistic in a sense. Don't just be that sport player. Don't be a soccer player. Don't just be a football player. Don't just run on the track. You know what I mean? Find yourself. Find your niche. Make some friends. You know what I'm saying? Find your support group here because you really can't do it alone.
Yeah.
Was it easy for you to do that?
I would say yes, simply because I'm not a drama person, so I just stay out the mix and just be nice to people. You know what I mean? There's no need for
And just be
negativity.
Be nice to
Just be
people.
nice. That's all.
That's the advice that my 2-year-old little cousin tells me all the time. Be nice.
Why does she have to remind you of that?
Listen, this is about Darryl, not about me.
Yeah, but speaking of which, man, thank you so much for stopping by.
Thank you for having me.
It was really good, talking with you about these things, and we wish you the best of luck.
Appreciate that.
We'll be back with more 28 Days and Beyond after this. We're back on 28 Days and Beyond. Charisma.
Yes,
Darryl had a lot to say.
he did.
A lot of issues that, I think we're seeing more discussion of, particularly with regards to, the NCAA, professional football. What was that sport, that movie where Will Smith had the horrible
Concussion.
accent? Yeah.
Concussion.
And it was kind of addressing this issue.
Well, it's something that people have talked about for a long time. I think it's just now starting to get to the point where people are starting to take those kind of injuries seriously because to a large degree, I feel like, at least in my opinion, when it's injuries that aren't necessarily visible, if that makes sense,
that
like
does
if it's
make
not
sense.
a torn ACL or something like that, it's easier to kind of keep athletes going. And for a long time, I think athletes were allowed to play longer than they should have been able to with concussions, and it's a big deal.
Yeah.
It's a big deal.
He had mentioned, can't do nothing about it. Football is a violent sport. I'm thinking about a friend of mine who played in college. He said he went blind after a hit for about one play. He was blind.
Oh my
He was for a
God.
whole play. He was just blind, and he was just kind of just, following that. But those sort of things were just.
But he stayed in the game?
He stayed in the game, and and then he was like, all right, cool, I'm good. But that's what you do, I guess. I don't know.
That's not what I would do.
But that's why I didn't do no
But that's why I
college.
didn't
You know what I'm
play.
saying?
That's why I
You
didn't
can't
play.
even get over not having
No.
Thanksgiving, so yeah.
No, absolutely
Yeah,
not.
yeah. But I mean, I think there's certainly, I'm enjoying watching the conversation play out.
Me
I
too.
think there are a lot of things that I personally find unfair.
What do you mean in terms of what?
These cats be making money. I went to a school that is a major football contender. I worked I was a tutor for some of these athletes. I see what their presence on that campus does financially.
Yeah, absolutely. And they're not benefiting
And
from
they're not
it.
benefiting from
Other than a scholarship
Other than a
or-
scholarship
yeah.
or, you come through this program, it sets you up for. But I was just
And
like,
they risk so much.
so
They
much.
put so much of themselves on the line. They're basically sacrificing their bodies to perform a form of entertainment for all of us, and it's like, what are they getting
What are they
besides a
getting?
bunch of injuries?
That they carry with them for
the rest of their lives. But it was beautiful to see Darryl be able to really understand who he is as a person outside of athletics.
Yeah.
Because that's not easy to do.
Yeah.
I can't imagine, you know, if I wasn't able to sing or host or do the things that I love to do that I've been doing all of my life anymore.
You'd still be Riz.
Bring it in. All right, bud.
This has been another episode of 28 Days and Beyond.
Where we talk about our history, our heritage, and our culture. We'll see you next time.
Peace.